From the dawn of man, indigenous people from every corner of the globe have spoken of things that have now been discounted as myth or legend. Things they saw, lived alongside by, were looked upon as deities or worshipped by gods. Things that present-day man refer to as entities, spirits, demons, cryptid creatures, extraterrestrials, and much more. But sadly, modern man, science and society has discounted what our ancestors spoke of as legend and myths. But there are those of us that know what the ancient ones spoke of is the truth. Those of us who are obsessed with finding out the truth. This search for answers brings us into the world of the unknown and unexplained. It brings us on the trail, in search of living legends. Please join us tonight in another part of our journey to find these answers and bring the truth out into the light. Welcome and thank you for listening.
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. It's going to be season 6 and episode 8, which is crazy because it seems like we just started this show, ain't it? Crazy. We got a treat for you tonight. We got a great, awesome guest from Squatch and Holler, Mr. Roger Williams. Roger, how's it going?
Doing good. Thank y'all for inviting me on. This is
Absolutely.
actually our makeup since I got sick, but
Yep.
I was looking forward to it. I hate to cancel, and it bothers me. So I appreciate y'all giving me another chance to come on.
Not a problem, man.
I know. Good to have you on, Roger. Excellent.
Excellent to have you on.
Roger,
yeah, we know how it is.
Tell the audience not specifically, but where you're from and a little bit about your show there.
Well, I'm from Southern Middle Tennessee. If everybody knows where Nashville is, if you come straight south about 55 miles, I'm in that area. There's if you look on the map, there's a circle of ridges that you got the Nashville Basin, and I'm in the southern part of that Highland Rim. I think they call it Dimple of the Universe, whatever. And growing up on the south, in the county's long, so the south end of the county is all ridges and whatever. And you go into the north end of the county, close to Duck River, and it gets a little flatter. But that's where a long time ago I had my first experience, the sighting, and it changed the way I did things. And long story short, I contacted a guy with a podcast last year about this time. I don't know why. He in his story, he was going to own a podcast, and there's some things he said that made some things that happened to me make sense. And I thought, well, this guy's small enough and new enough, he may talk to me. And sent him an email back. I ended up telling my story on his show. Felt so much better, getting it out there, off of it. And ended up co-hosting with him for a few shows and helping him get some people on. And it turned into, I had so many questions. You're co-hosting, sometimes you can get like maybe 2 or 3 good ones in. And so I thought, I could do this. And so my son and I, we came up with the name Squatch and Holler, which could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And Chris Reinhardt, he made my logo for me and just blew me away. The logo was
good guy, Chris. Yeah, we've had him on our show here, and he's just a great guy.
It's amazing to me in the last little over a year, the people that I've been exposed to because of other people. And just like the trip we went on to Land Between the Lakes this past week, I knew a couple of them. We didn't know everybody. We were familiar, but we were all there for the same reason. Everybody they were nice, welcoming, and it was better than a family reunion because families fight, right?
Hey, that's right.
Everybody at your Squatch convention there over in LBL was there with the same mindset, and it actually makes people feel better. I wanted to comment, Roger, that when you did your first interview there, like you said, it made you feel better. But also other people that saw that interview, you got to understand, it probably made them feel better. They felt a kinship with you that, hey, listen, this guy saw this just like I did. People don't believe me, but here, this guy saw it and he's telling about it. Why can't I tell about it? Because a lot of the cryptid sightings, let's say cryptids, because there's more than just Sasquatch. There's more than just Dogman and Mothman out there. There's a lot of different cryptids.
Yeah.
And people just don't feel comfortable coming out saying, hey, I saw this, because generally their friends and fellow workers and everybody are going to think they're crazy.
Yeah,
And they don't want to be thought of that way, and they're not, because like out of all the people that well, for instance, I did a study from 1995 to 2015. I took those years, and 3,500 sightings in California, all the way up the coast of Washington into Canada. 3,500, Bigfoot sightings and Dogman sightings. And out of all those people, I'll bet you that there was 3 times as many people that had sightings, but didn't say anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you guys, how long have you guys been doing this?
Oh God, Nick, this is our 6th season. Nick and I personally have been working together, what, 4 or 5 years now, Nick?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, on our own, I've been doing it for, God, it's going on 21 years now.
Yeah, and I got into it when I was 23, and I'm 44 now. So
been a while.
I mean, it's like
been a while. Yeah.
So you guys, you understand this. Just going off of what you said, Nick. Once I told my story, went public with it, I felt fine. I was a lot. Okay, it's out there now. I don't care. We're done with it, I thought. Then I started getting messages from locals. Can I tell you something you not tell anybody? Well, absolutely. And then they're telling me privately, and I can tell the stories, but I can't tell their names.
Right.
But I got a lot of thank yous. Thank you for describing what happened to me. Thank you for letting me know. And some of the encounters, like a guy I went to school with in 2008, I never had heard this story, but my son is friends with his son. He said, hey, you need to talk to his dad. They were driving down the road at night in the Jeep, north end of this county, top off, doors off. And he said, Roger, he stepped out in the road looking away from us. We surprised him. And he said, when we went by, the lights, I said, I was looking up his nostrils and he flinched like he thought he just got hit. He said he could have grabbed us. And I'm sitting there at the gas pump, at the local gas pump, like, what the heck? And he said after that, he got obsessed with it. But he went to the farmer and he said, a couple of days later, he said, can I talk to you? He said, sure. And he said, have you ever seen anything strange out here? He said, I've seen the big boy twice. I know what you're talking about. So, without me telling my story, I've had lots of people be comfortable enough to tell me. And I've also had a few that, I understand when somebody, they're afraid of something or they don't understand it, their first reaction a lot of times is laugh it off. So I don't get defensive about that or whatever. It's just and some people, they want you to have a conversation, a 20-year conversation in 3 minutes, and that's not going to happen either. So, I mean, what I did, I come from it, the research part of finding out things from the standpoint of knowing they're real because I saw one, and trying to figure out what is it? Why are they here? Does anybody else know about it in this area? And once you start digging into it, then there's, like you said, cryptids. There's some things I never thought about, and we've had some strange things happen. Once you start going out in the woods at night in different areas, I've had, I don't know why in my life I've had paranormal stuff happen. My son's had stuff happen. He told a story last night that I forgot about, and who knows? We do have Cherokee blood on both sides of my family.
Okay.
My great grandmother was Lydia Gray Eyes, and I've talked to several people, and maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know. But it got so bad at one point that I just prayed, like, I don't like this. I don't want this. Please take it away from me. And for years it kind of settled down. But, you go out looking for, well, if you'd asked me a year ago, which people ask, what do you think Bigfoot is? It's all flesh and blood, whatever. If you'd asked me 15 months ago, I'd have said 100%, but now, and some of the things we've done and we've seen and we've heard, I don't know. I leave a window there. I don't, if you tell me, Jeremiah, that you saw a Bigfoot getting out of a UFO, I can't even laugh at you, because I've got stories that I'm telling that happened to us, and I'm thinking, Roger's bat crap crazy to quit talking, but it's
I know what you mean.
It's getting it out there. And y'all stop me if I talk too much, because
No, keep on going, man. You're doing great.
well, I ask a lot of questions, and the reason I started doing my show was to learn.
Yeah.
And I talk about my stuff sometimes, but when I do start talking about it, it happens again, and from the very first time, what was wild about that, I had no idea about some of the other things, and the infrasound, and the screams and all that. Well, my son, oh yeah, absolutely. Golly, I wear so much. There was one,
right? Everything like that.
Yeah, and that's something, I understand how that sounds to people, but until it happens to you, there was one time before my sighting, I was going hunting. It doesn't snow that much down here, and hunting in the snow is just awesome. And I went to my normal spot, or was going to my normal spot. It snowed Friday night, Saturday morning, and I look into the field. I have to go across maybe 70 yards and then into the woods. They felt dark, and I kept looking into the woods, and I'm like, if you go in there, you're not coming out. And I tried to take a step with my right foot, and I was locked down to the ground, and I'm thinking, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I kept trying to step, and I couldn't.
Nope.
I don't know why I did this. In my mind, I was like, if you'll let me go, I'll turn and step with my right foot. I'll go back home. I won't come back today. And it's like it just let me go. If that was in my mind,
wow,
it was in my mind, but it happened.
Roger, and sometimes the intuition that you have to go with it. You really have to go with it. Otherwise, there can be catastrophe.
That little voice has saved me so many times. I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Roger,
let me ask you. I have not personally I haven't been fortunate to see a Sasquatch. I've seen Dogman, a sighting twice, and an encounter once. And but no Sasquatch. I've actually been north, south, east, and west in this whole country, over the borders into Mexico, over into Canada, in search of different cryptids. I was in Washington State. I'm going to reference that for you. I would like to ask you if you've ever seen trees 20 inches or more around, uprooted and shoved back in the ground the opposite way, with the roots sticking up in the ground. Have you ever come across anything like that?
I've never seen that. I've seen some of the documentaries and stuff, and they have that up in that area. It's pretty amazing. Like, if you have a investigative mind at all, the first thing you start looking for, I would look for, would be machine marks.
Right.
Yes.
And some of the things
shoved it in the ground.
Right. And some of the things that we found, as far as like the old tough thorn, what are they? What's the name of that tree we have here? But it's a thorn tree. I have pictures where we found them broken down. Every thorn, they're 3-inch thorns. Every thorn is intact. There are no scuff marks. There's so something with hands had to reach in and break it down. And we found 2 of those, one of them 10 foot up and one about 5.5 foot up. And on this same property, we found an X. And being new at this, I I wanted to be a detective back in the day. I worked at the sheriff's department for 2 years. They had me headed that way. But there's things when you have a job like that, there are things that you're not prepared for. Maybe the romantic side of solving a mystery, but you don't the sights and smells and the heartbreak of dealing with people that that's just wasn't for me. But I do try to have a if I see something, if Jeremiah and I walked up on something, I'm gonna try to debunk it first, figure out what caused it. And so it's just like this X that we found, these two cedar trees. I got pictures of it. It was after something happened on this particular property, and we went back a year later, and there's this X. Well, it's still there, and it took me a year to figure out. Well, wait a minute, let me go see if these two things grew there and then accidentally fell over. So I dig around in the leaves, and one of them did have a root system, but the other one didn't.
Wow.
So it was brought from somewhere in those woods.
Somewhere else. Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah. That's a big thing up here in the Adirondacks. We get a lot. Just on my property, we have a family. I live on the family plot of land, 200 plus acres, and we've always had action. But the big thing we see a lot of is the X's.
Mm-hmm. And you
just
can
massive, pulled up by the root, and just
what
crazy.
so
a man's not going to do that.
Right. You're big enough, just like Nick was saying, these big trees turned upside down and then shoved into the ground. If it wasn't a piece of equipment that did it, and I've never seen, I wouldn't know how they would do it.
Me neither.
Without scuffing the bark,
Right.
or leaving indentions or whatever to get that grip to, so
Yep.
that's scary.
It's also
It
pure,
is.
raw, massive strength.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever did it must have been awfully big.
Yeah.
What I was, just to complete the thought on what I was trying to tell you, is I was up in Washington State. I met with 4 fellows who were from a Sasquatch group a Bigfoot group up there. And Dave took me through an area that they've been through many times. And we came upon 15 trees. Roger, 15 trees ripped out with the roots, shoved upside down into the ground. Now, one of the fellows decided that he was going to return home because he had enough.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, and because of my background, I decided the same as you. I got to find out what did this. So we spread out. We were looking around. There was no machine marks on the ground. There were massive marks on the tree barks themselves where the bark was taken away. And I'm thinking something huge must have grabbed this thing and jammed it down. How you're able to do that is beyond me. I mean, I can understand it's the weight of the tree, but you've got to be awfully big. I mean, Jay, something maybe 15 foot, and
just incredible to be able to
pounds and massively strong. I mean, if you look at a gorilla, they're like 11 times as strong as a power lifter, a human power lifter, and they're not that big. So you're going to figure if it was a Bigfoot and it was about 15 feet tall and it was 3,000 plus pounds, this thing must be massively strong. And it's not something I want to bump into in the woods.
No.
But the one fellow that was with us, he belonged to that group. He just returned home. And from what I understand, he quit the group later on. He wasn't going field investigating anymore. I mean, to see this, Roger, 15 trees, no marks on the ground, no marks on the ground.
Could you tell, were they all about the same time period that this happened with those trees?
It looked like it must have been the same time period because when we looked at the roots, they were dried out, all of them. All right. And the surrounding area, the grass had grown in. Mm-hmm. So we're figuring, I mean, they hadn't been out there in over a month and we were just going to pass through this area. Now, Jay and I, when we've been interviewing Bigfoot people, Bigfoot investigators have been doing this. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I asked them direct. I said, what would that mean? And, they said that this would mean stay away. This is a warning, like teepees. that might mean a good place to stay for food, water, and shelter, because they're not using those teepees for shelter. I know that. But yeah, that's a warning to me. If something's going to jam trees in the ground, yeah, you better bring some heavy firepower with you, because that's a lot of strength to do that. I mean, I saw this with my own eyes, and I do want to say is I went out there to see if I could see a Squatch, Bigfoot. The best was seeing those trees, and the best thing we had was we heard tree knocks in the distance that night because we camped out. Above all things, right? We camped out in the area I'd say about 900 feet away from the trees.
Lord.
I think that was a no. We shouldn't have done that, but nothing happened to us.
Well, Nick, I will say this. Jeremiah, you said you have seen at least one.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's what I'll say. You can describe the color. You can talk about the way it moves. I saw one walk up the hill. The color, I describe it as it's the Hershey chocolate bar, not the wrapper, but the inside.
Milk chocolate.
Yeah,
Okay.
milk chocolate.
Yeah.
So now I can tell you all that and you can picture that. But the
Yeah.
one thing that's the hardest to convey is the size. When you say, mine was about 7.5 foot, I'm guessing because we've had bulls and hogs and whatever. I'm guessing by the mass. When I say 700 to 800 pounds, a lot of people, when you say 7.5 foot, they don't realize the mass that comes.
It's unreal.
It's unbelievable. And mine looked athletic. That's what confused me. I had seen the Patty film, but this thing looked more athletic, and the way it walked, and it knew I was there. I'd been hunting there since I was 8. I was 14 at the time, and it looks up the hill, and I'm to its right, about 170 yards or so, 180, and it turns its head and shoulders like this, and looks right at me like, I know you're there. You look, so and I'm like, should I run now? So is this, but I stayed.
Now, really?
Yeah, I stayed. And so what in your mind, you're like, this can't be, this can't be happening. But the way it moved, I didn't stay in the house as a kid. I was still a chunky kid, but I was always out in the woods, And so this hill that went up, the farmer was older, so he wouldn't bush hog it every year, and it would have regrowth, and that regrowth would grow up and it would get entangled, and it was grass. But if I walked through it, which I did, I hated that walk, but it was the shortest distance to the alfalfa field where a deer hunt. I would go in between, and sometimes in the evening I would sneak over there and see if they were feeding in that alfalfa field. And I didn't have permission to hunt in it, but I could hunt around it. So I'd walked up that hill several times, and I hated it because I was leaning uphill, and the way we were built, I had to take my feet out up and over this grass because you couldn't go through it.
Right.
And so I would stumble up through there. And when this thing started up, its back wasn't leaned forward like mine would have been as much. And you ever seen a walking horse motion? You ever seen the walking horse? They go up and over, up and over like that right there. That's the way it was doing. It was just stepping.
Wow.
And I actually sent a question in to Cliff and Bobo, like, with now you're finding out flexible foot and whatever, but the way this thing moved, I asked with the flexible foot, because we have pressure on our Achilles when we're leaning, like that. If it flexed in the middle, would that allow that motion in the back to be straighter? And they were like, Bobo was like, I see what you're saying, and he said, I never thought about that. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not, I saw it happen and I couldn't figure out why it moved like it was moving. So, but anyway, and you'll hear the first thing I saw was what's wild is the first thing you see is everything. So your mind scrambles.
Yeah.
It's like, this shouldn't be here. But it was. So, and my dad, he laughed at me. I told him that evening, I think I saw a Bigfoot, and he laughed. And he said, well, that was probably Buford. Well, Buford was almost 90 years old, and he couldn't make it to the mailbox, much less up that hill. And I'm like, okay. So I shut her down, and a couple years later, he come to me. My mom and him had something happen the night before. He said, how big did you say that thing was? And I said, well, that limb up there, if I stretch, I can reach about 7'4", 7'6", tiptoes. There was a limb, and I went up there, and so give or take 7 to 7.5, 7, 8, whatever, right in that range. And he said, there's no way. Well, what happened to them? This thing, they pulled over. He had to relieve himself. It was on a back road close to the house. And we went back, my mom showed me where it was at, about a 30-foot bank, including the 4-foot fence. And he said something was snapping trees. He thought it was a bull or something. He said then it jumped and landed in the road behind them. When it landed, it was boom, boom. And he felt it, and it started running to them, and it was kicking rocks in that gravel road. When the feet were hitting it, the rocks was kicking towards them. He screamed at mom to get back in the car. So he didn't see anything, but it scared him enough, and he, it doesn't take much to figure out that shouldn't be possible. First off, there's something to jump. Maybe if it was a horse or a deer, you're going to hear hooves, and you're going to hear 4 legs, but it was 2 feet. And so that opened his mind up, and I started showing him later in life the YouTube channels and some of the guys that broke down some of the things. And there's only like maybe 5 out of everything out there. There's about 5 that I would start a newbie out. It's like, you look at this. Forget about everything else, because I'm not sure. A lot of it you're not sure, and some of it's just complete hoaxes. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lifelong thing. There was just a huge gap in it.
Sure.
And we were welcomed back. My son got a new place to hunt in the south end of the county, and he got permission for me to go with him. This was in 2020. So we go just before the season to scout. And when you're scouting here, it's not like out west. We're looking for holes in the fences. We're looking for the water. We're looking for the food.
Yeah.
And the game trails. So we're just getting a feel for the place. And we're walking up through there. We're not saying anything. We're not hunting, but we're in scouting mode, and we're not talking loud. And at this point, we're not talking. So I've seen all this stuff on YouTube about the markers we just talked about and whatever. And I look up, and I see a small hardwood snapped over about 5.5 foot over, and it looked like a high pressure just snapped, and the wood just splintered out the back. It wasn't, and there's no trees fell on it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, well, I've seen videos. People say this might be a trail marker or something. I had my phone. I just got a new phone, but I had this phone in my pocket. Of course, it got Siri. Wasn't saying anything, and I stepped past that marker, and Siri says, "I don't quite understand."
Oh,
We didn't say anything, so I grabbed. We're in the woods. You're in that mindset. I grabbed the phone. Like, what? And as all this happened at the same time, as Siri said that, a rock about the size of your double fist came through a cedar tree and landed and bounced towards us. And that's the oh crap moment, because immediately whatever did that had to have thumbs.
Yes.
Pretty much. And so it was either somebody messing with us, or and so I'm sitting there, and I don't want to panic. I don't like to trigger. I'm pretty decent. I'm running like hell inside. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to figure. I've got my son with me. He can take care of himself, but he's there. And I guess I didn't move fast enough for him. He said, "Are we just going to ignore we just had a rock thrown in?"
Rock.
I said,
Roger, how heavy you think that thing was?
The rock?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, double fish. We're probably, I'm gonna guess, 3 to 5 pounds, maybe.
Just think about it. If it was 3
pounds,
and you didn't see who threw it, that means they're further away.
Yeah.
And you could see. what kind of massive strength did something have? This wasn't a human. What kind of massive strength did something have to throw a 3-pound rock in your direction?
Right.
I mean, I'd like for the audience out there to think about it.
Yeah.
Go outside and find yourself a big rock that weighs about 3 pounds. Just see how you could throw, how far you could throw that. You can't throw that very far.
And here's a
with accuracy,
And
because
with accuracy, right?
when they throw a rock, I've had them thrown at me. Well, they'll land 2 feet in front of your bottom feet, your feet. You know what I mean? 2
Yeah.
feet away from you,
Right.
which is incredible. So
And-
sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
No, you're good. The thing is, this is important. I think maybe, I don't think it was overhand thrown. I think it was lobbed by the angle that it came out.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Underhand.
It was lobbed, I believe, by the angle that I saw it, that it was lobbed underhanded.
Underhanded.
And so we took that as, like Nick said, as a warning to
Sure.
leave, and we left. Well, a year later, we hunted the place, but we hunted over on the other side. But a year later, it's before deer season. We went and I thought, I want to see what's back there. And when we went back there, I thought it would be thick, you know, whatever, but it wasn't. It was there was a draw back in there. If we'd have went 20 more yards, whatever was over there would have had a long ways to go to keep us from seeing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think we pressured it, whatever it was, into warning us, because if we'd have stepped through there, we'd have seen it, because there was, you know, and I know they move fast. And I've heard stories of them. Have y'all ever heard stories of when they go to get away, they drop down on all fours and explode?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Roger, something else I wanted to bring up. The one you saw, you said about 700-800 pounds. You thought it might weigh. I want to bring something else out there, because remember, like a bear, I've seen a skeleton of a bear. The bones on a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, I mean a 7-8 footer, bone thickness and the bone weight must be tremendous in order to actually the word I'm looking for is to assist their strength, because you have to have the bone power and bone density in order to put up with the amount of power and strength that they can generate.
And I never thought about that, but I know my son, really athletic and strong, and the torque from his quads ripped his knee.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. If you have, and that's what the doctor told him he was too strong here and wasn't strong enough in the backside. So
in his
going with that, you're right. As much muscle mass as this is, if you take and flex really fast, you could break a small bone.
Sure.
I never thought about that. That's a good
Roger,
point.
it's just pure physiology and anatomy. And I mean, these things are so, I mean, just like the trees being jammed in the ground, even if it is a 15 footer, and even if it is 3,500 pounds or more, it still has to have the bone density to be able to have the muscles push without it damaging itself.
Right.
You know, and I mean, just take that into account anytime. Well, if you ever have a future sighting and you're trying to estimate the weight, because the dog man I saw was 7 feet 7 inches. Now, we went back the next day and I looked on this, there was a stop sign near it, and I estimated that's where it was. We ran a ruler up the tape measure. Now I'm estimating from my seeing it that night, even though it was dark, I had it lit up with over 5 million candle power from my Jeep. And I estimate that this thing weighed about 650 pounds. I mean, and it was no Sasquatch where it was really thick or anything, but it was muscular. And I'm looking at this thing saying, my God, and the rest is history, because I didn't even know what it was. Took me a while to find out too, but yeah, when you take in consideration the weight of these things and the bone density, which brings me to one other thing. I know the audience wants to hear your stories, but if you're ever out there and you have to defend yourself against it, don't be going out there with a 2.23 or a 9mm, because, you're not going to, unless you're a great shot, you're not going to be able to kill a brown bear or a grizzly bear with a 2.23. you know, unless you hit them in the eye or unless you get a lucky shot someplace. So, I mean, 308, 10 millimeter pistol, 44 Magnum. But I mean, think about it, the bone density, the thickness of the skin, the muscleature on these things. These things aren't fat. You know, they don't eat cakes and pastries like we do.
No.
Was it the Daniel Boone story where he had to shoot it in the head because they said they cut it open and it was the breastplate was not like ours and it was really thick,
Right,
really thick.
Dana Boone. Dana Boone, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. Here's what I do. We do carry our guns, but mostly because there are little things that like to bite you too.
The hogs.
You know what I mean? People don't realize it. And I don't mean this in a bad way. There are some people that never get to do what we do. Been out in the woods all my life. I've had times where if I hadn't had something, even like my dad used to say, if you just carry a stick, carry a walking stick, because if you come up on a trail and you get a snake you get in a bad spot, you can take that stick and get some distance between you. You know, get him away from you or whatever.
That's right.
But yeah, I've had skunks. I've had rabid skunks, or maybe skunks with small ones get after me and on up, and you get in a bad spot with some wild hogs, and they'll eat you, and nobody ever know where you went.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
you were right there. Those hogs that's it. They'll eat anything.
Yeah.
But like you said, Roger, I mean, I've preached this to people all the time who love to go what they call boots on the ground, investigating in the forest. And gee, you don't even go a quarter of a mile into the forest and you're investigating it. But they're going in there with sneakers, flip-flops, low shoes. I go in there with boots and gaiters that are you know, they're bulletproof gaiters practically. So the snake, if you get hit by a snake, because you know what's out there, right? You know as better than as any of us do. Mosquitoes, ticks, snakes, skunks. You never know. And then you got your bear, you got your coyote, which will attack. Right. And I mean the occasional mountain lion, which can, by the way, from a standstill, jump 14 feet straight up into a tree. So people don't understand. There's a lot of things out there that can harm you. Even spiders. We came across a group. My team was out in Oklahoma. We came across a group of people that were out there hiking and sightseeing. And one lady was screaming because she got bit by a spider. And the spider was about the size of my hand. I figured it was a wolf spider. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it bit her. And she was screaming. And they had no first aid stuff. They had no idea what they're doing. I mean, they were all leaning up against the trees. Lean up against a tree and a snake comes down on you. Then what are you going to do? You know?
Yep.
In this case, it was a spider. I mean, there's red ants out there. There's the ticks. People just go out there and I don't know, they're just uninformed.
And you know, and I encourage people to get out, but it's just like we were walking a trail here last year, me and my mom and my wife, and we're in East Tennessee, just having a good time. And of course, we're not Bigfooting, we're not looking for anything. And of course, you know, I'm carrying concealed, and we're just walking around, and I'm actually filming, and I see a guy. He's about 6'2", 6'3", wearing orange and yellow shorts and bright blue, and he comes up the trail, and he decides to go the other way to give us room. And I'm watching my mom and my wife, and I let him get out of sight. I'm like, did y'all see that guy? What guy?
You can't miss him.
Oh, 40 yards away. And I'm like, y'all, there was a guy, he was about 6'3". He was, no, he was not. So I had to show him on film. You got to pay attention and be aware of what's going on.
Got to be awareness. That's it. Self-awareness and aware of your environment. And if you're not, I mean, like I was saying about mountain lions, I mean, there could be one in the tree. There could be a black bear in the tree. People don't believe that black bear can climb tree.
I've seen it in Gatlinburg or in the Cage Cove area over there. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
they'll climb up and eat. There's food up there. They'll go get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I always tell people, number one thing, look up. Don't always look down. Look up. Yay. Oh, okay. I applaud you for looking for snakes on the ground and you have your stick, well, could you look up once in a while? Because you don't know. There could be a snake up there. Could
Oh
be
yeah.
spiders, could be a mountain lion, could be a bear. You
And
know, you just have to
these
have,
cryptids climb too.
yeah, not to mention regular, a cryptid. So you have
You're
regular
right.
animals out there ready to get you. Oh my gosh.
It's and you can be you have your head on a swivel and be very observant and still mess up because you're in their territory.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever they are, whatever we're talking about, if it's a
Yeah.
snake or whatever, they're the camouflage. I've
Ugh.
stepped on snakes if they don't move, and you can still be looking for them and not see them. So
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So this I want to go back to this one in when you were 14, if you don't mind. How would you say that one, if you could estimate a height, Pat? About 7.5, 8 feet,
I
you
would
said?
say somewhere, between 7, 8. I mean, there's hardly a way to get an exact, but because of that limb, that was about 8 foot. I think me and my dad took a tape measure later, and that's what freaked him out. He was like, "There's no way, there's no way it could have been that big." I'm like, "Well, I mean, you asked me." So,
Yeah.
now if it had stepped, and the thing is too, I'd seen my dad walk. He was 5'8". I'd seen him walk around that corner tons of times coming back from hunting. I'd seen him. I knew what 5'8" looked like, and he looked. It was way different. 5'8" and 7 and 5'8" is way different, and I don't know how many hundreds of pounds difference. It's just it just it scrambles your mind for a second. Actually, like,
it does.
what in the world? Because when it stepped out, I mean, like I said, you notice everything at once. When it stepped out, I hate to use these phrases people use all the time, but impossibly large. Like you can see. Have you ever watched, let's say, a NFL game or NBA game, and those guys don't look that big because they're all big?
Yes.
Then you get close to, we went to the Titans game one time. There was a type of meet and greet, and they had a couple of the linemen, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And I haven't seen anything since that. And the way I started getting into looking up things it's kind of funny. I wasn't watching much TV. My son was about 15, let's say, and I never had talked to him about it. And he was watching Finding Bigfoot. I didn't know it existed.
Mhm.
He was in the living room, and I heard this sound that froze me in my tracks.
Mm.
And I'm like, I stepped around the corner. I was making him lunch or something. And I said, Peyton, what was that? Oh, well, this new show, yada, yada, and blah, and that's supposed to be a Bigfoot moneymaker, or how, yeah. I'm like, play that again. He played it again. And then he played it again. I said, I need to tell you something. I said, that's supposed to be a Bigfoot? He said, yeah. I said, that makes sense then, because they were strip mining, maybe a couple thousand acres behind the house we lived in for phosphate. And they were just tearing the woods up. They're clearing everything. And this was about the time I was hearing these screams. And the first time I'd ever felt a sound, the alfalfa field I talked about was probably 600 yards to this edge, maybe 850 or 9 to the other edge. It was a big field for here. And so depending on where it was at, it could have been 700 yards. I heard it. I felt it. I felt the vibration. And that didn't make sense. But who's thinking Bigfoot,
Yeah.
But I told him, I said, I've heard that before about a half a dozen times, but that recording doesn't do it justice, which we found out later that when you get something on here or you get something on recording, it still don't do it justice.
It doesn't do it justice.
Being there live, right? So if you show me, he was, what do you think about this video? And I'm like, audio's too clear. Somebody's faking. They've got a speaker set up.
Yeah.
Because I know how it works. Unless they've got these expensive, what they call them, the parabolic mic. I would think
parabolic mics. Yeah.
I think they would be really good. But it's I told somebody, I said, I kind of learned in reverse. I had all this stuff happen to me that I didn't know what it was. And then you go as you get older and the information's made available. We didn't have, I'm sure y'all know what I'm talking about. What we had here, you go to the library in school and it'd have a book, it'd have 10 monsters in it. Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs,
Yep.
Bermuda Triangle, and it'd be a chapter on each. And but I think one of the scariest stories I read, it was in one of those books about the loggers in California that found the tracks. But then there was one guy that had one supposedly look in the window, and I never thought I'd be going out just, and I still can't tell you why I do it. My son, he says he wants to see one. And my daughter says, my daughter, she'll go sometimes. And my wife, that I think they all think they do. But that, and if I'd have been 3 minutes earlier or later, we wouldn't be talking right now. 1985, if I'd have got distracted and hadn't stepped out in that field, this wouldn't be going on. So, sometimes I wonder why it happened. It's almost like things that happen through my life is, instead of, oh, I saw that, it's like it was shown. I know that sounds crazy, but maybe I was shown certain things in certain periods of my life where I would understand it. And
sure.
And y'all talk about the dog man. I'd never heard of that until a year ago. Now I've been around people. I think Wednesday night I'll be on with Barton Nunley. I don't know if y'all know.
I know Barton. We know Barton. Yeah.
Okay, so met him at the LBL. I had met Martin Groves and some of those guys before, and me and Barton started talking about some things I'd seen and experienced, and he had asked me to come on his show or whatever. So we're going to do that. I got to call him after I get off here, actually. But being exposed to people that have experienced things and have done the research and have talked to the people with the old stories. And I talked to a guy out in Oklahoma, Holler Tiger. He said, I think we're talking about some of the same things. We're just using different words or different ways to describe.
Yeah.
And that's a barrier there. Because I never knew. I'm friends with a lot of people from Alabama now. I'm only 20 miles from the Alabama line. I didn't know they called them boogers, wood boogers and stuff like that.
Wood boogers,
now they got me calling them boogers. And yeah, the amount of knowledge out there is astounding, because if somebody's new to this and they're like, hey, where's the evidence? I'm like, oh my God, where do we start? Because it's everywhere. I found my first trip to the LBL was the week of Thanksgiving last year on a Tuesday. And because I knew we were going to have the meet and greet in Colson Hollow, I'm like, I want to go scout this out before I go and see what it looks like. When me and my wife go up, and it was, you remember the drought, it was hardly any rain. It hadn't rained in like 6 weeks. It rained that night a little bit. We get up there, Red Hollow is, I think it's before Colson, and we pull in there and we look around the campground, drive around, and about 80 yards away, there's no water. Very little water in the very center, mud. And I was like, are those tracks? And to see tracks at 80 to 100 yards, they got to be some size to them. Now, I did see the small track, the deer tracks and all that. And so here we're back in the middle of nowhere, no phone signal. And I'm like, damn it. I've got to try to document this if it is something. So I got my poor man's GoPro, didn't even carry my phone. I go out there, and the first thing I see looks like a massive wolf track. And you can hear me say, do that wolves here? And then I find the tracks. There's one, I've got a picture, they screenshot off of the video. Now, there was some 14 inches. I had a 12-inch boot. And going back to the mass Nick was talking about, I was putting my foot down, 250 pounds on one foot, and I was barely 1/8 of an inch.
Barely scratching the surface.
And these things were 1.5 to 2 inches.
Yep.
And then deep. And one of them was 14, about 14, because I didn't do measuring tape. and the other one was about 18.
Ooh.
The heel was about 4.5 inches wide at the back, and it maybe 9 at the top, and
Yep.
the toes looked like big marshmallows, and they were like 2.5 inches deep. And y'all, when I tell y'all I did a really good job of poker facing it, it scared the hell out of me because
What?
I'm out there and I'm looking. There's like 30 tracks or more. There are small ones with toes, the 14-incher, and this massive one. And I'm like, what? And what have I got myself into? So I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to. So you got to document this. You can't be a you can't be a researcher and not get some kind of documentation. So I go through and I'm so nervous. I'm like, oh, there's a deer track. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? Who cares? There's a deer track. Get back to the truck and the windows are rolled up and the door's locked. What are you doing? She said, a rock came out of these woods back here behind the truck and bounced towards the truck. And it sounded like it was the weight of a golf ball. I said,
Wow.
when you lock the doors, that what you do next is you blow the horn and get my attention.
Right.
So, and we all know that there's a lot of misidentification.
Yes.
Everything's not a Bigfoot. Everything's not a dog man. Everything's not, whatever, an orb, which we've seen those. But you got to use a little bit analytical thinking. If it's falling straight down and hitting leaves, it's probably a nut of some kind.
I agree.
But when they start skipping toward you, then that's when you know it's something tossing them at you. Well, that's what she said. It come out from the woods behind her, skipped in the gravel and skipped towards the truck. And I'm like, God, please next time blow the get my attention, because here I'm already scared. I already got what Spencer, my buddy, calls the creepy feels, and so we didn't have any idea, y'all. I got made fun of. How come you didn't cast it? I could have had a truckload of casting material. There still wouldn't be a cast because I was by myself. I'm not getting down there and on my knees by myself when nobody watching my back.
Yeah, I no way.
I can see you out there, mixing the water and the plaster of Paris, looking all over the place, and something comes out there and taps you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you imagine that, Roger? Something taps you on the shoulder.
Oh God.
I probably never would have seen what it was. I probably just died. And people will tell you, well, I would have done this, and why didn't you get your camera out, and why didn't you? And I've talked to people that's been in some
really
bad situations, and they'll tell this story that's so intense, and it's the scariest thing you ever heard. And then somebody will say, well, why didn't you get your phone out?
Yeah, God.
You're in survival mode. Who cares?
Yeah, that's right. You're not in the situation that I'm in. And Roger, that's why I tell people, I said, when you get a chance, go to some of the local zoos that you have, if you can ever get to one, and go look at a 8-foot 5-inch, maybe a 8-foot 7-inch bear, brown bear, and you stand there when it stands up and see how you feel. I'm sorry, but a lot of these people, when I've taken groups to zoos, and a lot of the folks say to me, I was scared. It's behind bars.
Yes.
They were scared.
Yes.
I
remember going.
We went to a tiger exhibit, and there was a tiger there named George. He was 950 pounds. He's one of the biggest tigers. This is a real tiger. It's a real tiger. It's not a liger or anything. Right. This is a regular tiger. The paws were massive. The thing roared at us.
And you could feel it.
Went right through you. Yes. So,
yeah.
Jay, what do you think that feels like?
Right. Oh, I know what it feels like. I've been hit by that, and it's not pleasant.
It sounds like infrasound, Roger. And that's exactly what. Well, Jay's got hit by that. But I mean, a lot of people have never felt it. But we got too close to the cage. The tiger roared, and my God, everybody from the surrounding area, humans, actually, people came running to see what was going on.
Let me tell you a country boy story. This happened in Northeast Kentucky. My best friend moved from here. He went to the Marines, met a girl. They settled in Olive Hill, Kentucky, over there. and it's in the Daniel Boone National Forest area, Carter Caves area up in there. So there's there was a group of people that lived down the road that I didn't know about. And I hadn't seen him in a while. So we get the football out, it's years ago. We start throwing the football. I'm there to deer hunt with him and in the middle of nowhere. Hollows. I mean, they don't have fields. They got hills on hills that end on and start. And I was like, man, I love this country here. And we're throwing the football. And all of a sudden, I hear this roar, probably 300 or 400 yards away.
Uh-huh.
And the sound hit me, and it was the scariest sound I've ever heard in my life. I said, what in the hell is that?
Was it a bear?
No, he said, my neighbor won a lion in a poker game.
What?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you got it.
I swear. This is country boy story time here. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. And he said, the deer don't come around like they used to. And then he says, where are you going? I said, in the house.
Yeah, I'm going in the house now.
No, and I wasn't too sure his doors were big enough by the sound of that,
Yeah.
And at that moment, I got a new respect for people that live out in the areas where those things could come in to their. Yeah, that was terrifying. Yeah,
wow.
I'd hear that, oh, he won a line in a poker game, but
and that's just a sound. And
it was
what's
amazing.
making that sound.
And it rolled. It sounded like it rolled down that hollow.
Rolls down.
And it hit. You could hear it coming down. And it's weird. That's a weird thing. I don't understand. I know sound travels very fast, but apparently the frequency travels a little slower. I don't know. And it's like it rolled down through there. And when it hit us, I'm like, it's time to get inside somewhere or leave or just go back to Tennessee. That would be
exactly. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever told that story before.
That's good. That's a classic right there.
Really.
That is classic.
But until you I remember there's a mule day in Columbia, Tennessee. Everybody laughs at it, but back in the late 70s and early 80s, 25,000 people would come and have a big parade. People ride the horses. They'd have competitions and storytelling contests and all that. The first time I ever saw the Coors Belgium team.
Oh,
of course.
Oh, yeah.
I was probably 11, 12, and I just took a step back and looked up at this horse.
How many hands tall you think they were?
I don't know. I've heard that measurement. I don't know. I almost could have walked under its belly without ducking.
They're unbelievable, aren't they?
They're unreal. And when they were stepping on the road, you could feel it.
Yeah, that's how the moose are up here. We've got lots of moose up here, and you can walk right underneath them, literally.
Remember, Roger, remember, a regular horse, your regular everyday normal horse, just the head from the neck up is 200 pounds.
Yeah. Oh,
not to mention the rest of it. So you can imagine what one of those Clydesdales, what those things weigh is phenomenal. Oh, God. I couldn't even guess it. I have no idea. But
me neither.
And the point
must have been a sight.
Well, the point is, you see them on commercials, you see them on the advertisement, but when you're standing beside one, it's the same thing with Bigfoot.
Yes, I agree.
Until you see it, and the thing is, mine was far enough away. But if Jeremiah was standing 180 yards from me, I could tell you he's got a toboggan on. He may have some headphones on. He's got a white shirt. He's got a checkered looking blue and white. You could see that.
Sure.
But if you don't see a boot line and it's all one color, basically, nothing breaks up. You don't see a belt line. You don't see that's confusing. That's confusing to the brain too.
It is.
Because I pride myself on being able to identify things, and some things I can't, and it messes with me a little bit. And my son's my go-to guy on sounds because he grew up on Steve Irwin, and he's amazing. One night we were out doing our bigfooting, and we heard a whistle. And I turned to him. He said, "Oh crap!" I thought, "Do you think that's what?" He said, "No, that's a female mountain lion. She's whistling for her little ones," and that scared me more than I'm like. Said, I hope they're not on the other side of us somewhere.
Hope the little ones don't come near you.
Yes, and I was like, "Well, we need to get back to the truck now." And I said, I was thinking, he's full of crap. Got home where we had Wi-Fi and go and YouTube, and I'll be damned. It was, it's good to have somebody like that in your group because,
Sure.
and there you go again.
Right.
You know, I would have come back and said, I don't know what it was. Somebody might have said, you think it could have been a Bigfoot whistling? Oh, that's possible. Well, he debunked that quick and said, you know, we need to go. So, you know, that I try to make sense of everything, and we've had some things happen. I don't even know. We had a scream one night. There was 4 of us there, including me, and his girlfriend and my wife. We were sitting around a fire at an active place. Why, I don't know. We just do this. It doesn't scare me while I'm there. When I get home and I'm like, what was I doing? Why
when you start thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah, and I had my back to the woods and had the fire going, and we had already relaxed. We'd been there so long. We're telling stories and laughing, and all of a sudden, the scream is 30, 40 yards behind me. And when people are like, well, what did it sound like? I said, well, okay. It was almost human for the first half second. It was definitely male. Then it changed, and then it went up, and I said, okay, let's put it this way. And it's going to sound horrible, y'all. I don't hurt people. It just this. I was trying to think of how to explain the intensity of this. So let's say if you took somebody and you mentally tortured them for a week, then you tied them to a tree in the pitch dark, and then started sawing their ankles off. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, there you go. That's what I'm trying to get across to you.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's horrible to think about. But this sound, I think it accomplished what it was trying to do.
You left, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my son got locked out of his truck because his girlfriend jumped in the truck, and she won't talk about this. We pulled up the first time. I was going all the time and getting out of the truck at night. And then one particular night, it was just me and my wife, and I said the creepy feels earlier. No, nothing was different. We pulled in, and I turned around, going up where we were going to park and get out, and I'm like, my stomach, I had jittery. I had some, I'm like, I don't think we're getting out tonight. And she listens. She's like, why not? I said, I've got a bad feeling. Nothing bad happened, but since that time, now sometimes we pull up in a spot and just roll the window down and listen. Sometimes we'll get out. In the daytime, we'll walk the place. But
yeah,
after the sighting when I was 14, I changed. I would go in the woods. You remember the old gas station $2 flashlights that they were made out of plastic? Little bulb, you couldn't see anything with them. I'd walk in an hour and a half before daylight, get set up in a tree stand or on the ground, come out. I would carry stuff with me. I was, 12 years old, and my dad trusted me enough to do the right thing. And Heather, my wife, was like, they didn't worry about you being out in the woods. I'm like, no, I mean, not really. Back then, that's what you did. Fish, we'd go fishing, exploring too,
Yep.
But when that happened, I hardly ever, I'll go about 30 minutes before daylight if somebody's with me.
Right.
But if nobody's with me, it's hard to. I will do it if I can get to a stand pretty quick. But but the stories I've heard, some of my friends, I mean, you're at their mercy.
Absolutely.
You're at their mercy. The size, the speed, the stealthness, and what I've heard from experienced people, that there's hardly ever just one.
No, yeah, they're always together, and they can think a lot better in the woods than we can.
Yeah.
Roger, your mention of those old flashlights, just to show everybody how far technology has gone. Here's a little flashlight, right? Looking back at me.
Oh Lord. Was that about 600 lumens or something in that little light?
This is actually 800 lumens.
800.
Little tiny thing. I mean, look at this. Compared to my finger, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell people, look, you're going to go out there at night. Make sure you have 3 flashlights, extra batteries, and, take care of yourself while you're out there. But I mean, it's an equipment thing, and I guess that's for another show. But since you mentioned the old ones, I remember those old flashlights, and they were
The little ball.
Oh yeah.
they were really bad.
Yeah.
You know? But Jay, we're kind of out of time. I hate to do this.
I know, me too. Roger,
Filming time, Roger.
we
Wow.
we'd love to have you back on, man, if you're game for it sometime.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, if you talked to me a year ago, I would have had a few things, but this past year's we've put ourselves in position for stuff to happen, and
Yeah.
and it's still surprising when it does. I mean,
Sure.
it's when
Yeah.
it's
Roger, you live in the cryptid triangle.
Absolutely.
You got to know that. I mean,
Yeah.
Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean, forget about it. You've got so much going on over there.
And
I mean, I actually got a glimpse of a dog man when I was down in Kentucky LBL with DA Robertson. This was during the daytime.
oh
During
Lord.
the, like 2:30 in the afternoon, and got a glimpse. He got a full view. I got a glimpse. I mean, you guys live in the triangle for
Were you in
research.
the north end of LBL, or
The Kentucky end, let me think. Oh, it was the exit going towards town. I think it was northeast.
okay?
Going
That,
towards town.
there, I am. Let me how do I put this? I guess I've met enough people now that I've been invited to some of those places, and I'm sure Barton.
Mhm.
I'm gonna call him here in a little bit. They said something about me coming up, and y'all, I don't know about it. I mean, it's bad enough to see an orb in a tree,
Yeah.
and see this and blue lights and stuff that shouldn't be there, and Bigfoot. But this dogman stuff, the stuff that I've heard about it, and I don't know.
It's scary.
Yeah,
It's bad. It's pretty bad when you actually get a sighting on it. I mean, Pennsylvania early last year, I had so many sightings in this one area that we went up twice. I went up there with the team twice. And I mean, the people were actually getting sightings. Dogman crossing the road. These people didn't know each other because before I'm going to go up and investigate something, a field investigation, and take a 7-man team up there with all the equipment and all the costs that happen, I interview these people first.
right.
And these people did not know each other. The calls just came in. Like the more notoriety you get, the more people are going to contact you. But
Absolutely.
keep giving them the help because psychologically they need that help.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel better. And maybe one day we'll get some more answers. But Jay, I guess this is the end of our interview for today.
Yeah, Roger, after I stop recording, can you hang out for a minute?
Oh, sure. Yep.
And thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. We'd love to have you back on. You want to throw out your YouTube channel for the listeners?
Y'all, it's Squatch and Holler on YouTube. It's at R Dodger 1971. You can look it up that way. It's we do talk Bigfoot, we talk Dogman some. I'm gonna have a guy on next Sunday. What is it? Mike Smith. He was in the LBL in the documentary about that Small Town Monsters just did. I think he was the first guy that they interviewed.
Oh, okay.
I contacted him. We're going to do that next Sunday. We talk Bigfoot, we talk everything, maybe UFOs, whatever. And I do fun stuff. There'll be stuff on there, that funny shorts or my dog. And at the LBL, this past week, more people knew the dogs than they knew us, But
Right.
so you can go through that. You can look at the lives. It's all about this here, and some of the videos. Y'all, I think you're doing something important. When I realized there are people that can't get out of the house anymore, there are people that would love to do this, they can't do it. They're, for whatever reason, they're older now or they can't afford to go to the LBL. Just simple videos like when we drive through, we'll have the camera on and let them see what the terrain looks like and how back in the woods we are. I believe that's we're doing a good thing. We're trying to figure out answers.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think I'll be the one to do it, but I want to be around when it happens. If that makes sense. If y'all go find,
absolutely.
if y'all prove it next week, I'll say, hey, I was just on their show. Those are good guys. You know, there's no jealousy there. And, you got some people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the drama. Yeah, I know what you're
Well,
saying.
Raj, if we can get you back on another time, I want to take it in another direction.
Sure.
And that other direction, I won't hide it from everybody, would be interdimensional portals, alien involvement with Sasquatch, and around along that avenue. But we are out of time, so everybody, you take care out there, and when you're going out, take all the precautions. Roger, once again, thanks for coming.
I appreciate y'all.
God bless everyone. Have a good night. Everyone be good to each other, and don't forget to look up in the trees.
That's
Have
right.
a good night, guys. Thanks, Roger.
Yes, sir.